People's Choice Voice with Yaman Mohammed, Stanley Thompson and Alex Short.
All right, then, that perfectly brings me on to my first point. I want to talk about Goldman Sachs, which might not sound very interesting, but Goldman Sachs is a very large investment bank. And Goldman Sachs has been ordered to pay out $215 million, that's £170 million approximately, to settle claims that it discriminated against women, offering female staff lower pay and fewer opportunities. The agreement comes a month before the long-running class action lawsuit was due to come to trial. It resolves claims from about 2,800 female staff who worked at the bank in the US. Goldman says it will work with outside experts to analyse its pay patterns and methods of promotion as part of the deal. So my first question, which mostly is targeted to Nusha and Lucy as our female co-presenters, would you feel comfortable in such a large corporation, you're constantly surrounded by so many people in so many departments, speaking up about someone receiving a promotion over you or receiving, a decoration after you? Do you feel like in a large environment, it's more possible for you to voice your opinion or less possible? What are your thoughts?
I think it comes down to the company's kind of purpose and values. I don't think it really matters. Even like last week, right? You guys are all boys. I'm presenting on the show and I don't feel like a minority. I don't feel like I can't speak my mind. So I think it just depends on who you're surrounded by. And I think it's such a large organization with so much money, as you mentioned, like Goldman. You'd expect that they would be able to deliver on their purpose and values. And they mention partnership, client service, integrity. And I think, if that isn't reflected in your workforce, where is it going to be reflected in? So I think, it's disappointing. I think it is, and I'll let Lucy give her thoughts as well, but I think it is, it's a good thing that they've got an actual target. They said that they aim to have women account for 40% of vice presidents by 2025, because about 29% only of Goldman's partners and managing directors are currently women. So it's a good sign that they have got a concrete goal that hopefully they'll be held accountable if they don't reach that goal. But the kind of paying them off thing, I don't think that's a long-term solution. And is 40% still quite a low percentage to commit to? I don't know if that's as much progress as it should be. So I guess we'll just have to see if they reach that goal.
To be fair, I was about to say exactly the same thing as Anusha. I think it depends who you're surrounded by, and it depends who your manager is as well. Because I feel like if it was a male manager giving it to another male, and it depends, because there could be a male above me. I think it depends on actually your work drive, your motivation, how good you are at something. I think that's what it should come down to in life. I don't think it should come down to, okay, you're this gender, you're this race. It should come down to, can you do the job?
Who's the best one for the job?
Yeah.
I think that's definitely something that, like Anusha pulled up the company values there, and I think I agree 100%. Whatever you have got to set out at the start of your business, of your whatever the Goldman do, they have to set out this tone. And as the world is changing as well, definitely the pay, because we've had loads of dispute over, not just here, we've had it on as like train strikes, we've had it with the bus, with everything going on over here as well. But I think definitely it's a change, and maybe they've paid. They've paid them now. So are they paying the workers?
They are going to pay the former employees who are victims of this.
But this is the thing. I mean, this it says after more than a decade of vigorous litigation, both parties have agreed to resolve this matter. So that kind of suggests that, I'm kind of reading between the lines here, that suggests that prior to a decade, before that, before a decade had passed, parties weren't agreeing. So there was some sort of thing going on there where one side didn't want to be held to account. Yeah. And I think litigation means that the lawsuit was filed more than a decade ago.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not like the victims are just kind of jumping on the bandwagon now. They're thinking,
No, this is pre-Me Too.
Right.
This is all,
Yeah.
this is
and
the
so,
problem.
yeah, I mean, when women are such a minority in an organisation, I feel like it's inevitable that issues affecting women aren't going to be dealt with properly. So you kind of need to see women at the top through to the bottom. And I like the point that you brought up, Lucy, about how it needs to be about not your gender, not your race, not your sexuality, not whatever it is. It should be about who's right for the job.
Exactly.
But the issues arise when you go down to the bottom, certain minorities aren't getting the opportunities, so they can never be fit for the job or right for the job because they aren't able to progress from the beginning. So it's really tricky, actually.
It's getting that balance between, okay, it doesn't matter about race, gender, but then there's also having that balance between actually having an opinion from every single person within that company of different backgrounds, different genders, different races. It's actually really valuable to a company because everyone will see things differently, and they'll especially see things differently when we're born and brought up in a completely different way from each other.
Diversity
I mean, all of us
thought.
were probably brought up in completely different ways, whether we're the same gender or race, whatever, because we were brought up in different households, right? And it's really valuable to have every single person's opinion throughout things. So I definitely think
So this brings me on to Shana Orlich, who was part of the was one of the founding members of this campaign. I want to say she started the whole lawsuit, and she said she believes there's a culture of a boys' club in these big Wall Street banks, but just large companies in general. And where that brings me is, obviously, me and Stan are men. We tend to occupy male friend groups. We generally hang out with men. I'm not sure why. That's an incredibly complicated sociology issue that I don't want to anyway touch on. But do you think that these male friend groups or these pockets of men in businesses, in social situations, are hard to infiltrate just on the basis that you're not made to feel welcome? They're hard to infiltrate from a cultural side, or do you feel like they maybe affect you negatively? You're not open to the same opportunities because it's a pocket of men. The same way me and Stan may not, indulge in, I don't know, something stereotypically female, not that there's anything that is female or male, but things that are considered female activities. I certainly would find it hard to maybe get into something like a sewing club. This is all incredibly stereotypical, but things like that, or maybe a fashion group.
Yeah,
These
I know what you mean for sure.
These are poor examples, but
No,
I wouldn't feel easy to access those opportunities. The same way in business, where these companies are mostly made up of men, especially in managerial or directorial roles. Do you think there's an issue with that? Do you ever feel like there's a wall in your way?
I think it is literally down to who you're with, because I mean, at college, when we come into college, there's never this, I don't know about you, but there's never like, okay, there's this group of boys. I don't feel like I can just, like, I'm happy to walk in and be like, hey guys, but I think it depends in what situation, because it is very easy to also feel intimidated by it. I think there's also intimidation on the other way around, that maybe you're going to feel judged. Coming into, like you said, something that's stereotypically female, are people going to make ideas about you that aren't necessarily true, which wouldn't matter to you, but you don't, like, might not matter to you, but you don't know. Maybe that's part of the reason why,
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's nothing inherently bad about boys wanting to be friends with boys. Like, most of my friends are girls, and that's not an issue. It's just, it becomes an issue when it's in the workplace. Like, the workplace is somewhere where you should be able to go there, you do your job, you get paid. So I'm looking at the BBC article now. It says that the fight provided a glimpse of the inner workings of the bank, which was accused of paying female vice presidents 20% less than their male peers. 20% is a huge percentage, while tolerating incidents of sexual harassment. So I think it's fine if, the lads want to go out after work. It just becomes an issue. And I think off air, you were talking about it, Alex, where, a man the male counterpart might get the promotion just because they're in with the manager because they were playing football together. So I think it's fine to have friendships in the workplace, but that should be separate from your actual working life, and you shouldn't have less of a chance at progressing in your career just because you were busy on the weekend or couldn't play football because you're a girl and you weren't invited. So that's when it's an issue.
I mean, I think I'll just quickly touch on this one. I think as we've seen like the stereotypical films like the Wolf of Wall Street and these places, these type of things where they are big groups of large, like powerful men who have got control over these companies. And I thought this, and not until today I've seen that obviously it's not incredibly popular, as I thought we were coming into a sort of age where this was happening less and less. Obviously back in the 2000s, maybe the years before that, it was more of a prevalent thing to have this.
I think that's why it's so shocking as well, because we think that things are getting better than maybe perhaps they are. And
then to see a 20% less cut from their male peers, that's incredibly crazy. And I thought we were coming out of this. I thought as the age goes on, we were going to get this more of a balance, but clearly not. And I don't know if this maybe just be one company, but if there's more out there like this, then that is really disappointing to see. I thought we changed this whole like stereotype of, not stereotype, but like age of where it was women were getting less than men. I thought that was coming out, but no. But I
think it's kind of sad that as well it puts men in the group too, because so many men out there wouldn't do this. Like you're saying, it's shocking, it's not nice, but then like people like you are seen to be like that because it's generalized, because it seems like it's a men versus women, but actually maybe is it just a certain group of men within that company, but others would happily stand with the women and be like, no, why am I getting paid more than my female colleague that is doing the exact same job?
Yeah, you're so right, Lucy. But then the issue is there aren't enough women to have allies in the company, and if it's all like 90% men or something, obviously they're gonna club together, or they wouldn't even really know, or this is a bit harsh, but maybe they don't even really care what the women are doing, especially in the finance world. It's very like dog eat dog.
You see that throughout life anyway, isn't it? Because if it's not a problem that concerns you, a lot of people are just like put a wall against it.
So I want to throw a curveball here, and I want to remove the gender aspect. Say by some weird magic, we woke up in a world where people didn't have friend groups determined by gender. Do you think making friends in the workplace should be limited, or building really strong relationships in the workplace, as it may affect the whole the meritocracy, the idea that the best performer receives the best reward? Do you think that building friendships in the workplace is a sly method of maybe altering the outcome of that? Do you think you should be able to build non-professional relationships?
Very good question.
As in, should there be like a ban on meeting your colleagues
after
work for a drink?
Yeah.
I think no. I think that it's natural, and like we're spending most of our lives. I know certain companies are starting to adopt a 4-day working week, which is great, but we spend most of our lives like working. So I think you should be able to enjoy the company, the presence of your colleagues, and if that blossoms into something outside of work, as long as it's like professional, there isn't a kind of like hierarchy or like power dynamic is the phrase I was looking for, then that's fine. I think it just becomes an issue when managers are hanging out with certain people and then favoring them in the workplace. So it becomes an issue when it spills over. But in terms of should we not be able to make friends in work, no. I think human relationships and connection
I think it's
is
also
important,
sometimes it's really good to have friends in the workplace, because sometimes you work better with people but then also there's the risk of what we're seeing here today, and what we've seen over the past is that risk can turn into a more having the biasy side between different people. So I think it's a risk, but again, no, I think you should be able to have friends. I think you can work incredibly much better, and it's a better environment as well. You feel much happier. No, if you see someone you're gonna instantly gravitate towards them. So I think it's a more happy place to be. If say you don't like your work as much, then to have someone there who you can talk to, I think it just helps you de-stress.
So what I'm getting from you guys is that the best thing you could do maybe would be employ a team of people, if you're in a large company, or maybe one person who makes sure that everyone is, regardless of their friendships with certain people or their relationships with certain people, is receiving an equal and fair promotions and rewards and whatever for their performance. So maybe make that a significant part of how a business operates.
Yeah.
I think that's I think we can all.
I think we've
agree on
agreed,
that.
haven't
All
we?
agree.
Lovely.
Yeah.
We've agreed for once.
Right, wow. Yeah, no, that's good. Wow, we're on fire.
Yay!
Right, should we go to a musical break for now? Should we
Absolutely.
bring some
Why
tunes
not?
in?
I mean, yeah, that's a great little start to the show, guys. I mean, yeah, Use Choice Voice, we're back. We've got a new presenter, and we've been doing really well. So yeah.
How did
make
you find
sure-
that, Luce? Quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
10,
Quick
15
first link.
seconds.
Good fun. Enjoying it.
Great.
It's very
I mean,
interesting.
yeah, we'll touch more. We've got some other stories. Maybe we'll touch on the Trump sexual assault case when we come back. We've got some stuff about football hooliganism. Twitter's
was
been
hacked.
hacked. It was, wow.
Twitter
Yes.
has been hacked.
But next up, we've got some Drake with Rihanna. Here is Too Good on Use Choice.
Leading the youth's conversation. This is Youth's Choice Voice.
Trump is
Was it?
our
Yeah,
is
we're
our
doing
next
Trump,
subject,
yeah.
which is always a great easy
He
thing
always
to
brings
discuss.
some good content, doesn't he? He
Oh,
always
goodness.
has there's something you can always
There's
talk
always
about him.
something to say
Always
about him.
something about
The
him.
man's
Even if
always in
it's
the
something
news.
from the past.
So yeah, what
Yeah.
has happened, Lucy? What's been going down with Trump this morning? Was it? I think the news got released.
Well, a lot.
A lot.
A lot by the sound of it, but he's been found liable for sexual abuse just in a short
With one
sum
sentence.
up. Yeah.
I mean,
That's-
yes.
So I'll give you a bit of a more detailed rundown. This BBC article states a New York jury found that Trump sexually abused and defamed E. Jean Carroll in a civil trial. Keep in mind, a civil
Who's
trial.
a journalist.
Who's a journalist?
Yeah.
Yeah. Former journalist. I don't know if former journalist who I think has retired now, but yeah, it's a civil trial, so it's not criminal. Trump is not going to prison, but he has been forced to pay out to £5 million in damages. Carroll accused Trump of raping her in a Manhattan department store nearly 30 years ago. The jury did not find Trump liable for rape, but Trump was also was found liable for defamation. That Carroll accused him of a hoax and a lie, which means he's now been forced to pay the sum of about £4 million or $5 million in damages to Carroll. Trump's lawyer, Joe Tacopina, said that the ex-president will appeal the verdict. Carroll's team hailed the verdict as a victory and said, "Today, the world finally knows the truth."
There you go.
And I think that's terrifying.
That is
Yeah.
that's really bad.
That story, a man who did things like this a long time ago, or is accused of doing things like this a long time ago and has been found guilty, continued to become the president of the USA. Going back to our previous topic, this was a long time ago, and the world has changed a lot.
I don't
But
think
Trump
his
didn't
actions
become-
were ever excusable.
No,
Is
exactly.
it relevant
I
that
mean,
the world
yeah,
has changed?
he did loads of questionable stuff, and I think
Yeah.
only getting found out now is a bit of a.
I just can't believe 30 because regardless, I mean, obviously that is a huge part of it, whether
Yeah.
he was president or not, but regardless of that, 30 years
Yeah.
walking around completely just free.
Yeah.
Successful.
Oh,
No,
no.
it wasn't just walking around. he was-
Successful, yeah.
Yeah.
By the grand scheme
Yeah.
of things, thriving
Yeah,
as a person.
exactly. And now this has only just come to light. It's just unbelievable.
I wonder what E. Jean Carroll was thinking when he became the president and at his inauguration and all
Yeah.
that.
I
That's
couldn't
awful.
imagine.
But what's interesting, actually, Alex, you mentioned that it's a civil trial, not a criminal one, so he isn't going to prison. But does this new outcome mean that he cannot be president of the United
So
States
I'm
again?
not sure. This is the thing. Trump has obviously been in a lot of legal trouble over the last few months for
Yeah.
hush money paid to Stormy Daniels and other journalists, and using a whole mix of other things, which I'm not going to say because I'm not entirely certain, and this is all incredibly complex.
It would
legal
take the
stuff.
whole show. if
Exactly.
we-
It went through everything, and none of us are lawyers. So yeah, I mean, he's the most controversial man on the planet, without a shadow of a
Yeah,
doubt. I
100%,
imagine.
100%.
And these legal troubles definitely aren't helping him. Even if he was allowed to run, which I'm not certain about, I don't see anything. Anyone being able to question the fact that a rapist.
No. I mean,
Sorry,
he
not a
said
rapist.
back in.
Sorry, not a rapist. Someone who's defamed and been
Well,
found.
the jury found that Trump sexually abused her, so that means he did sexually
abuse her.
It's all kind of blurred lines and all
Yeah.
this like legal jargon. You don't really know what you can say. I think we can all guarantee that Trump he's not a good guy. So that's one thing
But
for
he
sure.
did say
is
back
your
in-
point? Sorry, Lucy. Is your point
Sorry?
that you don't think people would vote for him anyway?
I think there's still a very large community that vote for him. I don't think he'll get enough votes.
I mean,
Okay.
I think
after this, I think this would make it incredibly hard for him to run a campaign and try and get people on his side further.
But we've seen his followers; they are 100% on him. I saw an interview quite a while back where there was a Trump supporter on there, and they said if he walked into New York in the middle and he shot someone dead, would you still vote for him? And they went, yeah. Why? You got to know why he shot him. And it's like
Wow.
how I don't understand how you can. They're so focused. They just don't. I don't think it's the fact that they love him. I think it's the fact they just don't want to be wrong and like back down from a sort of
yeah.
high point with where they're at.
I agree. I think it's almost the opposite of British politics. Sorry, pardon me. And that American politics is beyond the person, and British politics is far too tied to the person. Like, if you look at Trump, you don't think, well, you think of a person, but he's a brand, he's an idea, he's a whole side of politics. He's not a person who belongs to a party. He is Trump. It's
He's a
Trump.
new, he's a new
Yes,
face,
he's-
isn't he?
You know, he's a Republican, but he's Trump.
I mean, like I'm talking kids in the UK, different countries know about him, and for kids to, I mean, we were taught in primary school, we knew who he was, and for someone in a different country at that age to know he has to have some sort of big thing
Impact.
surrounding his name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I think we're gonna go for some music again here, and we're just gonna pick things up after with some rather funny. Oh no, they've changed now. We had Too Good by Rihanna and New Rules by Dua Lipa, which I thought was
we
funny,
didn't
but
get to hear
that's
a
not the
bit of New
case.
Rules.
That's not the case anymore. We've got Bootylicious by Destiny's Child.
Wow.
Oh no, that's a good one.
And
Destiny's
Radio
Child,
by
yeah.
Sigala on the way for you. Before we get back to Donald Trump and all his, antics, and get our thoughts on what he's been up to.
Assault and antics.
Anyway, here's Destiny's Child with Bootylicious on Youth's Choice Voice.
Leading the youth's conversation. This is Youth's Choice Voice.
Radio by Sigala and Emanike. Thanks if you are tuned into Youth Choice Voice on your radio. But just a reminder, you can also see our beautiful faces by tuning in to the Instagram live stream over on @YouthChoiceGA or the Youth Choice YouTube channel. We're going to continue with our discussion on the Trump sexual assault case. Alex, what have you got for us?
Yeah, I've got a problematic president as usual.
Been seen one of them before, have we?
Yeah, so I want to go back to what we were talking about before about a defamation case Trump is facing. He's got to pay out $5 million to E. Jean Carroll regarding defamation. But I mentioned about Stormy Daniels, and I want to talk about Stormy Daniels because obviously this is the craziest story I think since Monica Lewinsky in the White House and everything. So, Miss Daniels, whose real name is Stephanie Clifford, has said in media interviews that she met Mr. Trump at a charity golf tournament in 2006. So, again, pretty long time ago, nearly 20 years ago now. She alleged the pair had sex once in his hotel room at Lake Tahoe, a resort area between California, which Trump spent a considerable amount of time at. Anyway, Trump crazily denied these accusations at the time, and he continued to for a long time. He apparently didn't seem worried and was kind of arrogant, which is what Miss Daniels said in response to an interview.
Kind of arrogant.
Kind of arrogant. He's renowned for being very arrogant. Anyway, Mr. Trump told her to keep quiet about the alleged night together. Mr. Trump's wife at the time, Melania, was not at the tournament. She had just given birth. Anyway, Trump a few months ago was charged with business fraud over hush money payments to the actress Stormy Daniels. Miss Daniels claimed she and Mr. Trump had sex, and she accepted $130,000 or £104,000 from his former lawyer before the 2016 election in exchange for her silence about the encounter. So that brings me to a question. Does power and money give you the right to maybe not feel the consequence? Do you think it's, firstly, you can't agree that it's acceptable, I don't think, but maybe you could justify that the things Trump has done in his career should not have been hindered by a mistake he made in 2006. Would you like to think of a mistake you made in 2006 and continue to deny?
I didn't make any mistakes in 2006 apart from throwing up on my bib because I was 1. What mistake? We can't really compare.
Is there a statute of limitations, a time period you can go before you can forgive something on doing something not illegal necessarily, but wrong? The crime Trump committed in question was paying her hush money before the election.
Is that a crime?
Well, it's fraud. So
but
the issue is it's a crime within a specific county of New York. So
right.
It's not like a federal crime or anything major.
Right. I mean, his wife found out anyway, so really what was the point?
I always
he could
wonder
have kept
about
his
that.
130K.
What are her thoughts on this? Because obviously this is all going on right now. But what does she think? Because obviously
it must be horrible
this
knowing
is
your
massive.
husband sexually assaulted.
Yeah. This
Well,
is a
his kids
big
as well.
thing, and exactly, it's not just the wife, his wife. We have to think about here. It's
His family.
he's got
Yeah. Well, Melania Trump, if you want to get in touch,
We can get her on.
voice your opinion,
Gosh.
please feel free. But yeah, I mean, you're right, Lucy. I didn't even think of that. This is a horrible thing for the family to be going through. And
you
they
wouldn't
are
even
family.
want to imagine it.
No,
you
no,
wouldn't
exactly.
even if putting yourself in the position of one of his kids or his wife. It's one of them things of you just can't because.
Okay,
them-
so this gives me another good question. Would you pay to keep someone silent about something that may upset your family, but was fundamentally wrong? Do you think it's better to keep the public unaware of something you did, or your family unaware of something you did?
I mean, if the public find out, then your family are going to
the
find
public
out.
includes
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
family.
I think
guess.
I just wanted to touch on what you said a question about mistakes in your past. And I just wanted to answer that. I mean, if if you made a mistake like Trump has, what would you? What was the question again? Sorry, Alex.
Do you think there's a limit on how long you can go after
Okay.
making a mistake, that the mistake can be forgiven or diluted, or do you think if you've done something wrong, you need to, hold that
Yeah.
with you for the rest of your life and not become the president of the
Yeah,
United States of America?
Yeah, definitely. I think maybe it's not a time limit. I think it's what you do after this mistake either comes up in the press or if it happens. I think it's what you do after that. That's what really counts in a sense of bringing your reputation back in, as in it's not damaging it. Because obviously what Trump's done is he's He sent out hush money. He sent out 100 grand of hush money, which isn't probably the right thing to do. Which I think that's what's damaged him. Like he's made a mistake, and if he owns up to it, if he apologizes, or different things he can do, I think that's really what counts in order to have his reputation back. But obviously he doesn't want that because he's gone and done it again.
I
so
think it's like a pure example of that phrase of digging yourself in a
yeah,
deeper hole.
100%. I mean,
Yeah.
Trump's dug himself in the biggest of canyons at this point in time, because not only has he, we'll hear of, we heard of this morning, and then there's more news coming. That was already out in the news, but it's come up again of like more stuff. So one thing comes up and another thing comes up, and then he just seems to keep going and going and going. And I know these are all old claims and stuff, but this man was the president of one of the biggest countries,
The power.
He was
richest
almost
countries
one
in
of
the
the
world.
most powerful men in the world.
Arguably
Yeah.
the most important.
And for him to keep doing it over and over again, I mean, we don't know what he's doing now. He might be no allegations,
I
but
know he's playing a lot of golf.
I don't
hope
know.
that's all he's doing.
It's, I mean, yeah, it's crazy to think, and it just also you wonder sometimes. I wonder this. I'll be laying in bed. I wonder what else is going on in the world right now that we don't know about. These big rich people, these big powerful men and women, and everyone. What are they actually doing?
Do you think
could be
it's
some
better?
bad stuff.
Do you think it's better we don't
I
know
don't
these things, that we can maybe
I don't know though.
maybe pick the majority of the things these people do and showcase that as how we portray them to everyone else in society? So
I
if you elect
guess.
an official on 98% of the things they do, or should you elect them on the 2% of things they do?
Yeah, no, I see what you mean, is in having like maybe we shouldn't hear about what's going on in the world, but I mean, I just think sometimes
See,
You're
that's
right.
crazy.
I mean,
Sorry, you go,
no.
Nisha. Go
All
on.
right, I'll go on then. Thanks, Lucy. Yeah, no, I was just going to say it should be about the party. But I think when it comes to Donald Trump, you know, the president of the United States of America, he is the face of the brand, the face of the party, the face of the country, even just the face of the West. He is arguably, or he was arguably, the most powerful man in the world. So it kind of, obviously your personal life or what you're like as a person is going to come up. I can understand that. So, you know, I guess it's down to the public's interpretation. I mean, I'm sure, Stanley, you mentioned it earlier, his fans are his fans, no
They
matter
are
what, they're going to
fans,
stick
yeah.
to him. But, you know, maybe some people wouldn't feel comfortable voting for a man who gives people hush money because of some shenanigans
I
that
just
went
don't
on.
think that they will change. I don't think they will change their opinions. They're so incredibly on it all the time about it, and you see, and we had it with when COVID was around, and you saw some of them over there, just these claims, and like once they have an opinion, they have an opinion. They won't back down from it, even if it's incredibly wrong. I saw another interview. I'll just quickly mention this. I saw another interview, and it was about Judge Roy Moore, who was the attorney in one of the states. I'm not too sure which one, but he had a sexual assault case against him, and someone went on an interview, and it was American, and he said that it was like I can't really believe it. He said something about it was like a few years ago, some parents would be very happy if an attorney was like hitting on their daughter, their young daughter, and I was like, I mean,
Firstly, that's a shocking argument
that
from
is-
a lawyer
that is
to deny.
that is an
okay.
incredible. I mean, I just can't. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, think of that what you will. And I think, I'm going to go back to Trump here. I think Trump reminds me of Macbeth, which
we
is
go.
going to seem really...
We're gonna get
Back to
poet-
English
he-
GCSE
poetic.
here.
He's
Yeah.
very, very incredibly ambitious. You can say what you want about Trump. The man, once he gets something in his head, he believes it with 100%. You know, things
Conviction,
like election
yeah.
fraud and all of that. He believes them completely, and I think he'll do these things almost not subconsciously, but semi-consciously, like paying hush money. He needs to get this done. He just needs to get it out of the way so that he can get to his goal, which was at that point the White House. You know, he was in full "I need to become the next president" mode in 2016. So I think, you know, if you're ambitious and maybe possibly deluded, that's a very common thing, I think, in politics in general. But just, you know, specifically in this case, I think that's the main issue with what's happening with all politicians, and Trump is just
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the what would you do if you did this mistake. I mean, maybe he's because he's close to that goal. His goal is the White House. If he's close to that, and that he wants to secure the White House, he's probably going to do things. I think we've all done things. If we really want something, we might have to do something different in order to get that goal. And obviously his isn't right, but if he really wants that, he's going to have to change something. And he had to do something, didn't he? He had to.
Yeah.
It wasn't probably the right thing, but it got him what he wanted, and so.
Okay, let's quick one.
mad.
Lucy, do you think you could become the president of the United States of America?
Absolutely not.
Anusha?
No, I'm not American.
No chance.
Yeah, no, neither do I. We're all useless here. But we're going to try and just be youths and live while we're young. It's Live While We're Young by One Direction.
Youth's Conversation. This is Youth's Choice Voice.
Live While We're Young there on Youth's Choice. What a great song. I don't know if about me, but I was singing along in the studio here. Anyway, we're gonna move on to another topic. We're gonna leave Trump behind, like we should probably
Probably
do.
for the best, yeah.
Yeah. So we here at Youth's Choice, well, here in the studio, we've got someone who's got a bit of a. Well, it's not a. What would you say it is? It's I know it's a bit of a.
It's not even. I was gonna say an unusual diet,
it's
but it's
not-
not even that unusual
It's
these
becoming
days.
very common.
It is common,
Yeah.
yes. Well, we've got a vegan in the studio, don't we?
Whoa,
Lucy.
The V
Lucy-
word.
Lucy is a vegan, so we are going to bombard her with questions about veganism. We've got an overarching question of is veganism a trend? Now, we'll let you answer that just in whole. We'll go off what you say. So, Lucy, would you say veganism is a trend or is it
Here to
is it-
stay.
A lifestyle.
Is it a lifestyle? Yeah, go on.
I 100% back that it is a lifestyle, but I do think that it is a trend. It is, but it's not to say that everyone that's vegan is following a trend. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I
get
agree that at the moment a lot of people. It's not a bad thing, by the way, but I agree that a lot of people are being like, oh, like it looks healthy, it looks like
Aesthetic.
clean, like
Yeah.
it's all about that aesthetic thing. Eating a salad. I haven't eaten a salad ever.
Oh,
Wow.
whoa.
I don't eat salad.
That's
Wow.
probably
I
not a
don't-
good
Okay,
thing to
so
admit on live
firstly,
radio, Lucy.
let's just
Probably eat a
establish
salad.
for our listeners who don't necessarily understand exactly what veganism is. What is
Yes.
the concept of veganism?
So veganism is basically where you just don't eat any animal products. And that means meat, dairy, eggs, all of that included. To sum it up.
Is there anything that you may think isn't vegan you may think is vegan that isn't vegan? So, any foods that actually contain animal products
Honey?
that people might not be aware of? Yeah,
Yeah,
honey.
so
maybe.
honey, that's a debate in the vegan community itself, because some vegans do eat honey and others don't. I mean, I personally do eat honey, but I know a lot of people who might listen to this and be vegan themselves might think, oh my goodness, she's not vegan then.
I guess it comes down to
Yeah.
like if animals are being exploited or not. Some would argue that
Exactly,
bees
yeah.
are exploited for their honey because, I mean, what would happen? I'm not a bee expert, I'm not going to lie. My uncle used to
Anusha, the
beekeep.
bee expert.
Should have called him before the show. But they don't die producing honey. That's what they do anyway. But I guess they were going to eat the honey themselves.
Do they even eat honey? Is honey not...
What
Well,
happens
honey
to the
is
honey?
bee sick.
Oh,
Pardon?
What?
Honey is bee sick.
like vomit.
Mic drop.
Like,
Good
yeah.
gosh. I'm
What?
never eating honey again.
Like how milk,
Everyone
in
off
theory,
honey now.
is kind of like cow pus.
Wow.
Oh,
I mean,
no.
Yeah.
Lucy.
okay,
no.
so we've
Yeah.
we've
So
opened
you've
the-
ruined honey for
Yeah.
us. You've
come
ruined
on the show
You've ruined
and
the show, Lucy.
we have.
I'm gonna throw
sorry.
my crunchy bar in the bin.
Honestly, we've discovered that I can't. I think we're just in shock. Me, Anusha, and Alex are just
Yeah.
sat here
We're
in
just like-
shock. If you
Okay.
can see it on the live stream,
I don't
we
know.
are in shock.
I dread to think all the other crazy things you vegans know that we don't about
my
our
God,
food.
don't-
Well,
I
I
think
found
that is
out
the thing,
today.
yeah.
I found out today that gelatine is crushed up bones.
I knew it came from pigs. I always thought it was pig fat.
Same. I didn't think
There's
it was
also
bones,
beef
but it's bones.
gelatin as well. It's
Yeah.
just it's from.
I thought it was
animal
just
bones.
sugar. Is it? what have I?
Stan, you're a little bit
I
behind.
might have to
vegan
become
then,
vegan.
maybe.
You know, it sounds
Yeah.
like a better
So
diet.
say it's your average night. What would you eat on your average night as a vegan dinner? What's your
Okay.
go-to?
Well, right, I'm probably the fussiest vegan you'll ever meet, so I can't speak for. I know this is you're asking me personally, but I can't speak in general. I'm sure there are vegans out there that do have a salad for dinner, but I will eat like vegan chicken nuggets.
Lovely, by the way. I really love vegan
Beyond
chicken nuggets.
burgers. I'm trying to think. Some spaghetti bolognese. Love anything pasta. I love a vegan pizza.
Spaghetti bolognese.
Yeah.
So a vegan
The
spaghetti
vegan,
bolognese.
yeah,
okay.
vegan
Yeah,
version.
yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, there's this argument of, well, it's not chicken, so why are you calling it vegan chicken? Or why do you want your food to look like the meat version?
If your whole thing is
Yeah,
being against
Yeah.
and
meat,
they're
so why
like,
are you
they
eating
don't
fake
quite
meat? Yeah.
understand it. And my argument to that would be, I'm not denying that the taste or the texture or the smell is not nice. Chicken, it did taste nice. I did not like it,
So
you know?
when did you become vegan? Quickly, Lucy. Have you been vegan?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah,
Okay, so
well,
you're
2
well
years
in.
in
You're well
June.
in now. To
Yeah,
the,
yeah. I started pescatarian. I went to
The
vegetarian.
pescatarian to vegan pipeline is
yeah,
real.
I worked my way up, but I just think that people always say, "Oh, do you miss stuff?" And I think when I know where it comes from now and have such a strong sort of feeling towards that, and when you sort of know almost the truth or what isn't shown to you. I mean, if you guys have watched any of the documentaries like Seaspiracy, Cowspiracy, when you sort of see that head on, it's a bit like, oh,
It puts you off, doesn't it?
it really. I mean, I was watching a vegan woman on TikTok the other day. She was showing people where their eggs come from. And I mean, the reaction on people's faces, because we are really led to believe, oh, these are happy. Well, I mean, we've got the company Happy Egg, right?
Yeah.
These are happy eggs. The chickens are happy. It's all chill. They're all free range. But when you actually look a little bit deeper, there's more to it.
Or you're just kind of desensitized to it. Like you don't make the connection in your head between the yummy meat that's on your plate to like the cute
And
little
it
Absolutely.
doesn't
pig.
look like a cow, right? It doesn't look like
No.
a pig.
It's not in the
so-
shape of a cow.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
obviously it's just a bit of flesh. Yeah.
It's a strange one. I mean, I'm a keen meat eater. I always have been. I like to think of meat now a lot differently to how I did, 10 years ago. I understand that you're supposed to cut back on the amount of meat you eat, and I do try. And I love some quote unquote meat substitutes. I like beans. I like mushrooms. All of those things that could replace meat and still have a similar texture and flavor and all of that. I do enjoy that, but firstly, I wouldn't know where to start as a vegan.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know what to cook. I just end up cooking the most generic, bland things like rice because I simply have no idea where to start. So, are there any vegan recipes you've come across? Do you think vegan recipes should stop trying to emulate meat recipes and maybe try and be their own thing, their own?
Well, I like baking, so I can't talk about cooking because I'm the most plain person. So anything that has a sauce in, which is most vegan recipes, or anything like that isn't ketchup, right? It's not for me. So when it comes to baking,
So baking's
There's-
milk, eggs, flour.
Yeah, and-
a lot of
butter.
products. Yeah, butter. Yeah.
well, I mean, straight away, there's oat milk, there's soy milk, there's almond milk. I've never tried coconut milk yet. I'm still yet to give that a go. But there's so much stuff that I make at home with my sister, and I baked cupcakes at the weekends for the King's Coronation Street Party and things like that. And people were eating them, didn't know they were vegan. So there's no need to be like, these are vegan. I just baked cupcakes the way I baked them, and everyone's fine with it. And I think there's just so many alternatives now that it doesn't really make such a difference unless you're really focused on it, kind of thing, And there's even, I couldn't believe this recently. I've tried it for the first time 2 weeks back now. Fake egg.
Fake egg.
Fake egg.
Wow.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Because I've heard that olive oil can be a substitute for egg, but is this like a fried egg but
This
vegan?
is, so you get it in like a little bottle. It looks like whisked egg.
Yeah.
And I'll give it to you, I think it's a bit of a different texture. But it does the job, I make my pancakes with just milk and flour, and when people hear that, they're like, oh.
What? What colour are they?
They taste like biscuits. I honestly even if
wow.
you don't want to be vegan, just give it a go, because I tell you what, it's really, really
There you go.
nice.
Heard it here first. Use Choice Voice.
Use choice baking.
Exactly.
We'll
Voted
get it
for
on.
Pancake Day.
Yeah.
But it is, I think there's just so many alternatives now. I could give it to you about 5 years ago. Well, not even 2 years ago. Some stuff couldn't be made the same, but there's so much now. Sunflower butter.
That's
those
so
two.
good to hear. So I also want to ask, are there any things you really miss from not being vegan, or what is the thing you miss most, or if you miss anything, and what is a substitute that just can't quite live up to the original, the animal product that you're just trying to avoid?
Yeah, I can answer that last one straight away, and that's chocolate. And when people say cheese, I understand it at the start, but it's the chocolate that you can't replace. And that is also something I miss the most, because you can't replace it. So
Well,
Cadbury's...
there's a gap in the market, Lucy. Start up your own company.
Yeah.
We'll promote it for you.
Yeah,
Use Choice
exactly,
Voice.
exactly.
Yeah.
I love that.
But anyway, great to have some vegan talk on here. It's a bit of a new
Got me
section
feeling
we've
hungry.
done. Honestly, yeah. But anyway, we're gonna go to the news now. We've got Bo in the studio. He's gonna be reading the news. So yeah, check out that.
Leading the youth's conversation. This is Youth Choice Voice.
The Loop. All the news that matters to you is next on Youth Choice.
This is Youth's Choice from the Global Academy. Youth's Choice.
Online, on Global Player and on your smart speaker. Live from Global Academy, this is The Loop News.
I'm Bo, and you're in the loop. ASOS has reported a pre-tax loss of £87.4 million for the 6 months to the end of February. That's compared with earnings of almost £15 million a year ago. Sales also fell by 7%, which the online retailer says reflects its deliberate decision to focus on more profitable areas. Cricket Scotland says it's a landmark day for the sport after awarding its first ever professional contracts to women's players. Its introduction was announced in November, and now 9 players have been given deals. Other members of the regular squad already have professional contracts in England, including captain Catherine Bryce. 14 players have been retained for the men's team, led by skipper Richie Berrington. And finally, Catherine Tate has been announced as the UK spokeswoman for the Eurovision Song Contest final. The Doctor Who actress will deliver the results of the country's national jury live from Liverpool on Saturday. She says it's very exciting to be revealing who'll get the iconic 12 points during the competition. And your 5-word weather: light rain, highs of 17. That's your Loop News Roundup. More in an hour.
From the Global Academy.
The soundtrack for young London.
This is
Youth Choice.
by the end of the night there. Ellie Goulding, I was just saying in the studio, is that a new Ellie Goulding track? I'm not too sure. I haven't heard that one in a while. But anyway, we talked about veganism. We've talked about Trump. But now we're going to move on to a different side of... we're going to talk about some more sporting-related topics. There's a big game on tonight, the Milan Derby in the Champions League semi-final. And we were just going to kick off with a little question. I was going to ask Anusha. Anusha, you're not an incredibly massive sports fan, are you? You wouldn't say?
Not compared to you.
Not compared to... not compared to me and Axe. But I just wanted to ask, if you're going to a football game...
Yeah.
What would be your routine? What would you expect to see? What would you expect to do? What would you expect to have in the environment of a stadium? Whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I'd turn up.
Yeah.
There are refreshments available. I'd probably want to drink after getting up all those stairs.
Refreshments available is the nicest way I've heard of getting a pint.
Or a vegan sausage roll, maybe.
Oh,
that
you know
would be
what?
good.
They're getting fancier. To be fair,
Really?
At Watford we have a. What is it? A fennel sausage roll. So it's not vegan, but fennel.
Very nice.
Continue.
Yeah, so I'd probably want some refreshments. I'd probably want to watch the game and get home safely, and probably not see any violence is what I would expect.
Well, I mean, I know, Lucy, you're a West Ham fan. You've been to West Ham games. Leighton Orient you've been to as well.
Yeah, my granddad used to do walking football there.
Deep,
So it was
deep into East London.
Walking football.
Yeah.
That is a great
If you want to see something
sport.
entertaining, I'm not going to say funny, entertaining. Look up walking football.
It is great, to be fair. And so, what did you see there when you went to West, especially West Ham, big firm over there in West Ham?
Yeah, because obviously a lot bigger of a scale.
Especially have you been to the new stadium, the Olympic Stadium?
Yes, yeah. So I went once, just going sort of as a standard fan kind of thing. I also went once in the box.
Oh,
if that's what you call it.
Yeah.
So that was obviously a
all
very
right,
nice
Lucy.
experience. We're not.
We're mixing with high
least fennel sausage rolls in the box.
Let's just say that your parents' work sometimes has some pros.
Well, fair enough.
I think I personally didn't see anything violent. I did see stuff that was outrageous. You wouldn't see it at a rugby match. Let's put it that way. I saw, when they cover up the chairs, and no one can sit in that area. Yeah. Well, no, people did go in that area. Let's put it that way. It was climbing over the fence, trying to get to the other fans.
Yeah.
So we didn't see any violence, but if the security hadn't got there in time, I think that would have been a bit.
So yeah, that's what I want to come on to. We Lucy spoke about it a bit. It's more violence in football. It's more the side, the darker side of football we've seen. This is why I wanted to open this question with Anusha, especially what her routine would be and what would you see. But we've come on now, and there's a couple of stories come out, and there's a lot of thing around football hooliganism. I know I've butchered that word quite a lot during the show today. Hooliganism. But yeah, there's been a sort of uprise, we'd say, wouldn't we, Alex? In the level of and even the age, these younger fans being dragged into this hooliganism side. And I wanted to mention this because it's the Milan Derby tonight, and they are crazy. They title it as the City at War. That's what happens when
that's
Milan
like preempting.
I know,
preempting that violent behavior, almost excusing it if you're going to title it that.
So that's what happens when AC Milan play Inter Milan, and there's been some crazy moments. There was games that have been called off in a sense that they were throwing flares. I've got on my screen now. There were flares on the pitch, and there's an iconic photo, which I think if most of you follow it, you should follow football. You should see it's of Mazzarri and Rui Costa standing side by side, looking into flares and smoke, and it's a very iconic.
It's apocalyptic.
It is.
It looks like the end of the world. That picture.
Yeah, and it was 18 years ago, that game, and it got called off, and they had to replay it. But that's happening tonight as well, so we'll have to see what happens. I think it's going to get very heated. But yeah, it's the whole idea of the football hooliganism. It's on the rise again, and we're seeing more of a popularity coming up, especially after COVID. We've got a new generation of kids who have skipped maybe a year or two of football. What's your thoughts on it, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when we look at football, we're talking about probably one of the biggest things to ever exist. It's involved in more people's lives than most religions and anything. So you've always got to think about, even if thousands and thousands of people are getting in trouble over football violence, that's still a tiny, tiny minority of the football supporting community. And I don't think it's correct to call these people fans.
Yeah.
They just happen to support the club. They're just using that to justify their poor behaviour, their violent tendencies. And it reflects badly on football fans in general. I'm a Chelsea supporter, and
unfortunately,
at the moment, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, we were always plagued as one of the more violent clubs, and unfortunately, the term is a firm. They're a sort of a designated, almost a. I don't want to say a club because it's
a group
like
of
a group within
members, a
group of club supporters who actively seek out conflict at games and outside of games. Now, Chelsea has a large one because of just the size of the club in general, and a very controversial one. It got tied up in racial issues beyond just football violence, and that's completely inexcusable. As such, is football violence. So, these things don't necessarily imply that the football is the issue. It's the people that justify their actions by being part of these groups. So, I think you'll find these in anything. Rugby is a considerably smaller sport, but there is a bunch of people after a rugby match who will get in a fight. I went to the Principality Stadium in Cardiff, and outside one of the pubs, Wales were playing New Zealand, and there's a lot less conflict in between fans, but fans were still fighting. 2 Welsh fans were fighting because you're mixing men, often pumped up on testosterone and alcohol. And
stronger substances as well.
And stronger substances, and occasionally they're disappointed. Occasionally they think they're on top of the world due to maybe a win. So you're facilitating this conflict just by the very nature of sport, really.
But can I just ask, why do you think that? Because obviously rugby and when you go to a football match, you're separated from the other team, and obviously it works in a very good way now because there's obviously obvious reasons why they do that. But at rugby, they put all the fans together. No matter what team you support, you can all stand next to each other. Why do you think that with most sports you can just mix the fans, but at football they kind of have to be separate?
I think it would come down to emotion more than anything. I think as it's the greatest sport in the world, I don't think there's any argue that it's not. I think there's more of an emotional attachment.
Without a shadow,
I would say it is the greatest.
I love how you said that.
No, I think it is. I don't think there's any argument. I don't think there's any sport that can come up against it. I think it's the greatest.
It's definitely one of the biggest.
Oh, it's undoubtedly the biggest.
Yeah.
It dwarfs
the
everything
biggest.
else.
So that is a fact.
But this is what I'm saying. These people aren't. I think what I read from Lucy's is that it's not necessarily the fact that the people who go to watch football are violent. Football doesn't encourage violence. It's a sport. It doesn't encourage violence any more than cheese rolling or curling. It's just a sport. But the the people who want to seek out this conflict happen to have chosen the biggest and the easiest way and the most obvious way of doing it.
Yeah.
It's not football, and football is in a position to counteract it and do its best to. When I say football, I mean the governing bodies of football. We'll use the FA, for example.
All the players could speak out as well.
All the players, obviously, you know, no one wants anyone to get hurt on or off the pitch. We wants to be avoided at all costs by everyone except the very small minority who do want that. And you know, I think everyone talking out against it does help. It has helped in the past. Football hooliganism damn near disappeared for a long time. Yeah. And it has been. It comes and goes in waves. But this is fundamentally it's a minority that need to be.
I think there's a situation as well of, you know, a lot of people will say, why is someone not being nice to you for sort of no reason? And normally it's because someone's had a bad day during the day. And like, you know, when you go to a shop and you work behind the till and someone's comes across quite, you know, forward with you think, why are they doing that? And you think, because you don't know the kind of day they've had. I think football kind of is like that. You can have the worst day possible. You go to a football match and your team loses. And if you're such a big supporter of that team, I think that's another part to it. I think if it's something you follow so closely, I mean, maybe it does have such a deeper effect than what we think it does.
And football affects people differently. I mean, my dad, if Chelsea lose, which has obviously happened quite a lot recently, he's fine about that. He can forget about it almost as the whistle goes and move on with his day. My granddad, who's an Arsenal supporter, if they lose, he sulks for nearly 3-4 days after until they play their next game, and you can determine how happy or grumpy he's going to be by looking at the Arsenal result. So
we can do that with our teacher Mark as well. If Everton have had a bad spell, we always know.
Make
if
sure
he's
you do
gonna
your
be in a
schoolwork.
good mood.
No, I feel like Mark is quite consistently grumpy.
Yeah, he's either in an extra grumpy mood.
Yeah.
We checked the score before.
Apologies, Mark, if you are listening.
Yeah, we love you, Mark.
Yeah, but I think it comes down to it's becoming more of an excuse, not the fact that football is violent, but it's just more these groups of people are coming together and they're using football as a platform in a sense just to have a scrap. I think that's the whole issue around it. I mean, I've seen a couple of videos and it's people going, well, why are they doing this? It's violence. It's not right. And then there's these football fans who will come on and they say, look, we just want to have a fight. We're not going to try and fight you. We're just gonna, if anyone wants it, we'll have it. And I think that's the bad thing about it. It's not they're looking to go and support their team. They're just looking for a bit of violence. And I think that's the problem that we're facing in this modern era, especially as this modern era is becoming more of a open environment. It's becoming less.
And social media is becoming.
If there's been something that's happened on a game or something, you'll see it on social media, and that's again that puts fuels on the fire.
People that are that way inclined who may not have been aware of this going on.
It's a lot easier to make comments.
Yeah, you'll see
when you're hidden by a phone.
You'll see them going, "Oh, why this? We'll have them next time," or stuff like this. And it becomes bad because then, in a sense, you feel, and I can speak this from experience. I know my friend Lucas can as well, as a QPR fan. I've been to away games where I felt I've got to keep my wits about me here because I don't know who's going to be around the corner. Who's some guy who might not be, who's just looking for it. He'll just look and just take it out on someone.
There's a lot less sort of infrastructure to counter that lower down. I think in lower divisions, I mean, if I go to Stamford Bridge, it's like going to an airport with the amount of security and organisation. But when I go to watch, I mean, even Wanderers, Wycombe Wanderers, who's my local team and my second team, they're pretty good, but there's so much less. As soon as you get beyond the Adams Park car park, you can mix freely with any other fan. There's no directional movement there, and I think we're going to carry on with that after we break for some music.
We'll have a little break, but we'll bring on to some more stuff. I've got a couple of questions and answers here. We'll ask everyone more of a general opinion on this topic of violence and this topic of hurting people. We've also got a clip that I want to play of some police officers and what they think about what's happening and how they're trying to settle it down, as we say. But anyway, we're going to play some good music. We've got Jay-Z, Alicia Keys. This is Empire State of Mind here on Youth Choice Voice.
Leading the youth's conversation. This is Youth Choice Voice.
Tiesto, Tate McRae, 10:35 here on Youth Choice Voice. I'm Alex with Stanley, Anusha and Lucy.
Woo-hoo.
And we're going to be cracking on, discussing all of the things in the world that we think are interesting, have opinions on, or just want to share with you guys.
Yeah, so we're going to be continuing the little debate we have here about football hooliganism. I've got a little clip I'll play in a second. But yeah, we were just talking about this new age of kids coming in. They've maybe missed a couple of years. They want to get involved. I think everyone's probably seen numerous videos and TikToks of maybe the little kids going down to their like local teams, banging the drums. It's all good. It's all fun. But then again, we know that may lead into a sort of violent era, and it's not great to have. And it seems like they're having fun at the times, but when that comes into like maybe a bigger community, such as these firms, we know the big clubs like Birmingham. They've got probably one of the Blue Zulus, I think they are. They're one of the biggest. They're crazy out there up in Brum. But it's a worrying thing to happen.
The most important thing you could do is you have to, with those kids getting into football with great enthusiasm, and that's amazing because your local team and even just teams supporting a football team in general is just such a great force for good. But football and violence have been tied for a very long time, and there still needs to be a very clear cut-off point as what is acceptable as a football fan and what is unacceptable. And of course, you always have a political side to football where people may protest the national anthem, or they may protest the purchase or a move by the owners of a club. These things are a political issue, but violence is objectively violence, and that is what needs to be commented on and ruled out by all of these governing bodies, all of these owners, all of the players, because stopping kids who are just keen about their club turning violent in those situations is the number one most important thing.
100%. So we're gonna take a little clip break to see what the police are trying to maybe do to enforce a bigger law, or just give us some information about what's happening. So yeah, let's play the clip.
We're standing here in 2022 and we're still talking about firms that are called the Baby Squad and the Forest Executive Crew, and these groups still exist.
Yes, they do. Very often they'll have just one day a year that they'll come out, which they'll refer to as their flag day, and they'll have a reunion more than anything.
But one of the things we are seeing, is it not right, is a kind of a growth of younger people getting involved in this kind of disorder, teenagers, children.
The youngest band that we've had in Nottinghamshire is a lad from Mansfield who was on a ban at 13 years of age.
One of the things that came out in the statistics, but also in the report into what happened at the European Championship final, was the amount of drug abuse, amount of Class A drug abuse, cocaine abuse, that seems to have a connection with football violence. Are you seeing that?
Yeah, yesterday we had quite a substantial amount of cocaine recovered, particularly in one instance, that shows that it is rife amongst the groups. You've got a 13-year-old, 14-year-old lad who knocks about with 40, 50-year-old men. And you do have concerns when you speak to parents and they don't know who these adults are. But we have had one instance certainly that we've proven that the young person was carrying cocaine for the group that they were with, because they know that they'll perhaps not get searched on the way in.
How old were they?
That individual was 15, but it's just a small minority that are taking drugs, and it's fueling the disorder.
So there we hear, the police was talking about how young some of these kids are going out with these groups and doing these violent things and taking illegal substances at 13, and they're getting bans, and it really affects the way that they grow up trying to support a club, because I know, and it's one of the greatest things, supporting a club. It brings you so much joy, adrenaline, it gives you all the emotions, but we know that this is such a bad thing, and it also leads into back at home where we've seen, I mean, Nusha's got a stat here that we're going to read out about it's fueling things going back home after a game, say you've lost, and people are going home and bad things are happening. What's happening, Alicia?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, it's bad enough, all this physical violence that's taking place in and around the stadiums, but also it's affecting the wives and the women and the vulnerable people left at home as well. So if we cast our minds back to England losing the the Euro 2020 final to Italy at Wembley Stadium, which was a heartbreaking moment. But even more heartbreaking, domestic abuse is estimated to have risen by around 38% that night. So you can imagine that when, you know, these angry hooligans go home, the anger doesn't end there and they take it out on those around them. So it's really unfortunate, very, very scary. And I think it's great to, you know, that the police are addressing it. They're addressing the fact that the people getting into it are young, and, you know, with Andrew Tateism, kind of ties in with that. These are young, impressionable lads, and we don't want them to turn into abusers, basically. So, yeah, Lucy, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it can become quite a vicious cycle because, as the police were saying, mentioning 14, 15-year-old boys, they're the ones that then, because they're taught this way of life, they don't see it any differently. They're the ones that then grow up and become those sort of older men that are teaching the younger ones, and it just keeps going. And they're the ones who then could end up going home and being part of this 38% rise.
Yeah.
I think it is just that vicious cycle, you know, of just getting that in straight away, nipping it in the bud from, you know, when you're younger and you become a football fan, so that it just stays that way. And I feel like if we continue to do that, it could be a lot tamer out there.
And I think abuse is the key word here. People are abusing their privileges as fans to do these things and to justify these horrible things. They're abusing drugs, which we heard in the report, which I think is a horrific situation. You know, football's a fantastic, exhilarating experience enough, and I can't understand why you'd ever mix those things.
To enhance your experience with drugs, yeah.
But, you know, and then of course there's abuse happening at home because of these games, and we've known about these things for a while, and there just seems to have never been any major movement to fix any of them, is what I'm noticing. I mean, during the World Cup, obviously domestic abuse cases increased because after England's loss, but there was no drug abuse, and you've heard very little about violence, because these situations, in my opinion, don't facilitate that sort of thing. They don't make it possible because of the laws of these countries and the rules they've got in place. You're not going to step out of line. Whereas in this country, despite being one of the most watched countries on the planet, and, you know, everyone knowing everyone, and it being very small and very urbanized, you can get away with these things. You don't feel like you're immediately going to get in trouble for doing something like that, and the punishment you're going to receive is going to be negligible. You know, you're going to be out within a few weeks. You might get a fine,
or a warning.
Or a warning, and you can do it again next week, which is the case for a lot of these people. They're repeat offenders. You know, like I said, they plan it every year. But if I committed a crime on the same day or a planned day every year, or, you know, cause trouble, that's going to flag up. Why are these people not being immediately, you know, tracked down and persecuted against? I sure know they used to be, because there's a fantastic documentary. I think it's Lad Bible or Vice. I'm going to have to find out, where they speak to a police officer who actually infiltrated a firm back in the 80s. And spent time with them and tried to work out what's going on, all the crimes that they're doing, and when things are going to happen, so that they can prevent them.
Was this a kind of undercover operation?
Yeah, this was an undercover operation, and I need to find out who it is. The guy, they caught on to the fact he might be a police officer, so he had to pretend he couldn't read.
Oh my goodness.
He was illiterate. He couldn't read or write. To obviously, you have to be able to read or write to become a police officer, and if you can't read or write, you can't be a copper. But, you know, he had to keep this act up for like nearly 2 years. He'd drive on the road and he'd say, "I'll come off," his friends would say, or the people in this firm would say, "Come off at this exit." And he'd have to drive straight on past because he couldn't read the sign, or he apparently couldn't read the signs. So, but you never hear about this anymore. You never hear about these big takedowns, which maybe might be a case of they're just not in the public eye. They might still be happening. These operations might be happening, but it's not. Despite the violence still happening, it's not in the public perception as it was in the 80s. And I think that definitely needs to be brought into question. Us talking about it right now is doing that partially, and it needs to be talked about more to prevent it more.
Agreed.
I mean, yeah, it is a big problem, and I think tackling that at the front, as what Lucy said about bringing it in early, is something that I think maybe the police, are they doing enough, or should they be doing more to facilitate this? But I mean, it's a big problem, we all know that, and obviously we don't want it to keep going, so hopefully they can find a way, maybe bring in into schools and with kids and going like, we'll bring in maybe an ex-offender in or someone and say like these are the consequences or this is what's happening, but hopefully they can bring into justice these actions. I think we're gonna go to some music now, and next we're gonna be talking about Twitter. Yeah, what's happened with Twitter? Something's going down with Twitter. I mean,
there's always something going on
with
Twitter.
Elon Musk and everything happening with Twitter. There's definitely always a talking point there, but I think it's more of a hack. I think, Anusha, isn't it?
Yes. Some
yeah.
big names.
I'm seeing Kim Kardashian, Jeff Bezos.
Oh, don't spoil it all now, Alex.
Okay,
after the break.
See what's going on with them.
We will after All the Stars by Kendrick Lamar and SZA after the break here on Youth Choice Voice.
Leading the youth's conversation. This is Youth Choice Voice.
Yep.
Mimi Webb on Youth Choice Voice. We'll be moving on to the topic on Twitter in just a moment and all the recent hacking going on. But before I hand over to Anusha to chat to you about that, if you're affected or ever have been affected by the previous topic of domestic abuse, you can call 0808 2000 247. Anusha, do you want to give us the rundown?
Lucy. So, moving on. A British man from Liverpool has pled guilty to hacking accounts, including Kanye West Twitter, Mike Bloomberg's, Joe Biden's, Obama's, literally any big name you can think of. So it all went down this morning. Well, actually, last month, the man Joseph James O'Connor, who's 23, from Liverpool, also known as Plug Walk Joe. Not sure what that is that referring to. Do we know? Plug Walk?
No clue. It sounds a bit silly, though, doesn't it?
It does. Well, he was extradited to the US last month and has now pleaded guilty in New York to a role in what the BBC is calling one of the biggest hacks in social media history.
Wow. Crazy.
And that's not difficult to believe because obviously all the big names that I mentioned, it's affected over 130 accounts, including those of Barack Obama and Joe Biden. And the hacking was part of a large-scale Bitcoin scam. So it all comes back to the cryptocurrency bros, the finance bros. And the tweets kind of went out like this. I've got one from Wiz Khalifa. Obviously, we know now it wasn't Wiz Khalifa, but it reads, "I am giving back to my community due to COVID-19. All Bitcoin sent to my address below will be sent back doubled. If you send $1,000, I will send back $2,000. Only doing this for the next 30 minutes. Enjoy." And that was also sent.
I mean, that doesn't even sound
Mike Bloomberg.
real, does it?
No.
We've just seen too many of these before. I mean, I'm not being funny. We haven't just seen it from celebrities. I mean, I've had these messages actually DM'd to me from my friends' accounts. So I'm like, that's not you. I mean, thankfully, I know how my friends text me and I know how often they text me. But so many people get conned by this because they really believe it.
I mean, that doesn't even... I mean, I thought if you're going to hack some of the biggest names on Twitter, surely you should maybe do your research and like to maybe tweet like they do, because this is a copy paste sent on everyone's account. I mean, to be fair, we don't know how long they had on this time or whatever, but I mean, it's an elaborate hack, and I thought maybe they'd do a bit better to try and fool one. I certainly wouldn't get fooled by this. I don't know about you guys.
I mean, the only one that I think is maybe like, oh, you possibly could fall for it is Mike Bloomberg, because obviously he's like the finance bro of all finance bros. And if he's saying something to do with money and giving back to the community as a huge, powerful man that he is, maybe that would be believable. The only thing I think is funny is that, the tweet that I read out is basically the same for all the celebrities that apparently tweeted it or didn't tweet it, apart from the punctuation slightly changes. So what I think is funny is that, like, I can't imagine Mike Bloomberg going at the end of his tweet, "Enjoy," with an exclamation mark. Like, I don't know, do finance bros use exclamation marks? I'm not sure.
I just feel like they're so... People that hack are... If they use that intelligence to do good, think about how great the world could be. That's what I always think, because... I wouldn't even know where to start. No. I don't want to know where to start, but I wouldn't even know where to start.
Well, that brings us on to the overarching question we were going to ask you. Do you feel safe on social media? Now, we've had this hack. There's obviously been major hacks in the past, and there will probably be major hacks in the future. So we want to know, I'm going to ask you guys, we'll know in the comments if you're watching the live streams on Youth Choice GA, do you feel safe on social media? I mean, I've known friends who've been hacked. I don't know if you guys have had experiences with it. I mean, our friend Lucas, who was on the show just last week, we know he went through a hack. Someone DM'd him and he stupidly clicked on the link, and that was it. His account was gone. He had to create a new one. So
it's a shame because people play on the kindness, don't they?
Yeah, so we know. Well, Lucas is lovely, so we know that he's not going to bow down to do anything. Unfortunately, this was a bad instance, but... Yeah, have you guys had any experiences with hacks on any sort of social media at all?
I've not been hacked myself, but I've been messaged by hackers on my friends' accounts.
No, same. So I haven't actually fallen for it yet, but I think I mean, I don't know. They could get more elaborate, and I could fall for one in the future. It is a little bit scary. I think it's a reminder that nothing is going to be more secure rather than like just pen and paper. Like if you got secrets, probably don't message your friend about it. Tell them in person. Make sure phones are out the window.
But yeah, having these sort of like, I mean, I want to ask this question as well, because we know of you guys. I think I've seen videos, and I don't know if you guys seen videos. It's a bit of a common thing nowadays, is ads on like websites, on like Instagram and everything like that. Have you seen these things where if you speak into something or you're typing away, it will generate an ad that is like relevant.
Oh, I find
to
it
your
so
thing.
scary.
So what do you guys think of that? I mean, that obviously is that's a tactic used by companies to get more clicks on their adverts.
I think somewhere on your phone,
more views.
can you adjust that setting? Because I always wonder to myself, I sit here and I think, oh, that's really scary. I've just talked about sharks and a news article about sharks has come up. But is there something I've actually not read in the small print?
Yeah.
You know?
Could be, yeah. I mean, TikTok is a big one, and they recently banned TikTok from being downloaded on government devices in this country, I'm pretty sure, and for good reason.
Yeah.
Because I know that if I'm DMing don't question it, but we were talking about Ben Shapiro. I'm not a supporter of Ben Shapiro for the record, but we were talking about him. He came up, and then I start getting, and this was on Instagram DMs, and then I start getting TikToks about Ben Shapiro, and I'm like, this is not a coincidence. So I reckon TikTok basically, and we don't realize it because I don't know about you guys, but I don't tend to read the small print, and maybe I should, but it's small print and it's not really designed to be read. They deliberately do it so it's really long and nobody actually wants to read it, so you kind of just tick I agree. But in the small print, probably if we looked at TikTok, you are not selling, but giving them access to your private conversations across other apps.
Producer Sam
has just given us some insight there. I mean, we know, and I wanted to ask this question. We saw recently of the whole TikTok scandal with the America asking, do the Chinese the data that we have on TikTok go to the Chinese government?
Yeah.
What do you guys think of that? I mean, we know that came down to. I mean, I saw some of the TikToks, some of the memes. Some of these American officials were acting very stupid because they hadn't done their research towards the Chinese. And what do you guys think of that? I mean, I'll speak to Alex as well. He just come back.
I'm back, so I can disappear quickly. A more overarching thing is I think that people freak out about technology, but I've personally not got anything to hide online. I don't have anything that I'm ashamed of really online, and I don't think anything out of the ordinary, and I don't think that targeted advertising and the sort of things that is the main goal with data accumulation. Maybe the question with the Chinese government and ByteDance and the parent company of TikTok is that they're using that data to build an idea of a Western person and target them with ideals. But if you're just trying to target me with relevant products or things that I might want to buy on the TikTok shop, I can't personally see a negative in that. I'd rather be advertised for things that apply to me from my phone or my devices or my internet, understanding what I want, rather than something completely random that just clogs up my feed. Something that I might actually think, oh, I do need one of them. Oh, I do want one of them. Because to me, that's just good marketing, efficient, good marketing, solving two problems on two fronts. And that's the reason it's got to the point where it is, because fundamentally it works. It's a good thing to do, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we also had the whole thing about the emergency alert that happened the other day. And I have some arguments saying, oh, they're invading our space, and all like this and that, and you can turn it off and whatever. But then again, at the end of the day, some of these things are done for good reasons,
yes,
obviously.
This alert thing. The alert, they do it in America. They do, I know there's one called Amber Alert, and I know it's a different one. There was one when I was out in Florida, and one come up on my whole family's phone about a missing child. And I think it's, to be honest, for me personally, I think it's amazing, because I think straight away, this kid's missing, and you can look out for them, and you can catch that while it's still in this. I mean, America's a huge place, and I know we're talking about the UK here almost, but it's such a big place. Why not be able to get it while it's there? Do you know what I mean? Before it becomes a bigger
It's a bit of a case of almost a reverse Boy Who Cried Wolf. If you get 10 notifications, you think, oh, I don't mind about that car that's gone missing down the road. That doesn't affect me, whatever. But the one you do get that tells you need to evacuate your house because there's a gas leak, or you need to, someone's gone missing next door, or whatever. They do matter, and they are really important, and they completely nullify any concern over anything previous. So a lot of these things people fear, to me, are either present a minor inconvenience with a major benefit, or are just sort of neutral or beneficial at any given time. And I think people need to relax and actually look at their devices instead of freaking out about technology like we do with AI and these things that are questionable, new, and scary. Everyone needs to stop and actually research and understand what they are. I'm not claiming to be, infinitely knowledgeable about all of these things, because you can't be. No one's an expert on all of these things. I'm not even an expert on one of these things. So, you know, you need to, but I seek to understand why these things are the way they are, what they do. And I think that's really important. That needs to be taught to people, you know. And it stops us from villainizing these companies and villainizing Chinese technology just because of the political shape of China, and drawing an even larger line between the East and the West, which is the last thing the world needs.
Well, I think
now.
TikTok came out and said that by, was it August or July this year, they were going to give each government, make sure each government had access to their own country's data on TikTok, so that they can actually see what China would be getting, I guess, from what they think another country's getting, they're going to get. And apparently they only take your data as in you personally when you use a filter, because a filter needs to scan your face, of course, so that it knows where to actually put, say, a face mask or whatever on your face, you know?
It's an interesting one, it really is. But we'll go back to Twitter, because obviously Alex wasn't here, so we'll give his opinion on what's happening on Twitter. Do you feel safe on social media, Alex?
Well, I just did a very bold thing on social media, and up until about last week, I had a private Instagram account. Instagram is what I use mostly. I use all social media platforms, but I don't post on anything or interact with anything anywhere near as much as I do on Instagram. And I had a private Instagram, but as you know, things go. Follow me on Instagram, Alex Short, Alex _Short.
A little bit of a plug there.
No.
Follow at Youth's Choice GA. That's the
follow
only
him. Follow that too.
And the Luke GA.
And then you get round to Alex Short. No, I made the account public, which was very strange, and I've been getting follows from some people. I thought, oh, I know them. Oh, it's good that they followed me. That's really cool. And then I've just had bots and scams and other things that should definitely not be online showing up on my feed, and that's just from making one decision to public my account.
Yeah.
The people that are following me are posting things that shouldn't be on social media.
Yeah.
So you know that was a big one, and that did make me question briefly. Gosh, social media is it's the Wild West. It's terrifying, the amount of stuff you can find on there. But generally, it will feed you what you want to see. And again, 99.999% of the things I see on social media are either neutral or relevant to me. So I do feel safe scrolling online, and I feel like I'm at the point now in my life where I don't fear anything I'm going to see, because I know that if it's really that bad, there's a way to deal with it. And you know, there are people constantly monitoring that.
And
stuff.
I think it's that thing of changing your passwords regularly as well.
Absolutely.
So make sure you're doing that.
Yeah, well, it's a great conversation. We had Alex, we had Anusha, we had Lucy for her debut on Youth Choice Voice, but we're going to end the show there. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks everyone for giving your opinions today.
You. Thanks for letting me join.
We'll be back next week for more Youth Choice Voice. The next time is Katy Bates of Pretty Boys, me and Alex's favourite song here on Youth Choice.
Leading the youth's conversation. This is Youth's Choice Voice.
We had our first date 3 weeks ago on Monday. He took me out for dinner, then he asked me back to his place, mate. He was like 6'8" with